folks. We have reached the Thursday edition of the Sportsline Podcast here on CHCH. I'm Bubba O'Neill. Well, as many of you know, sports in Southern Ontario is our focus. And folks, it is hard to argue and certainly fair to say that this region has developed outstanding athletes, teams, executives, and broadcasters. Today, a very interesting lesson from the sports broadcast business. Like many occupations, it can take years and sometimes just a little bit of luck to land an on-air opportunity on television. Yet at times, after climbing the ladder of success, other challenges or other elements of life become more important. Former Sportsline, Fight Network, and TSN broadcaster Candace Fogolin is a perfect example of someone who found another calling. And now that you've found another calling, it is only appropriate that we have you here on Sportsline, Candace. So many years, and it's been a long time, but I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad you're willing to come in and just tell your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been 10 years. I left in 2014. It's 2024 now.
Isn't that crazy?
Time flies. You look the same. So
I hope so. And I'm a little older, but I'm still around though, still kicking though.
Yeah.
And you look great, and it just and I just see that smile that I've missed so much from those good days on the Sportsline podcast. But as I talked about off the top, you did have another calling, and we'll talk about the broadcast stuff a little bit later. But what are you up to now?
Well, so I have 2 kids now, which is a bit of a change since the last time I was here.
Yeah.
I have 2 boys, 4 and almost 2. And I'm a realtor now at the agency in Oakville, and loving that, and just started. I took some time off to be with the boys. I was home for 4 years. Just started working again this fall, and it's great. It's great. Kids are in school, daycare, and mom's at work. And
and what is it about? What is it about the realtor business? And I know it's out of Oakville, which is your hometown, and that's got to be a good feeling.
Oh, it's so nice to be back in Oakville. I've been back now 5 years there, living there, and to be able to work in the community that I grew up in and I love and I know, it's really special. And I'd thought about being a realtor for a long time, and finally decided to be like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to do, and I'm really happy I did it. I love just meeting new people and being out and about. I'm not the kind of person that can sit at a desk all day. And I've always loved homes and decor, and like I would go for like open houses when I was a kid. Like that was fun for me, right? So it's nice to be doing that and just helping people find their dream home, so it's pretty cool, and partnering up with the agency. We're newer here in Canada, but it's a brand that started in California, CEO Mauricio Umansky. And actually, we are affiliated with the show Buying Beverly Hills on Netflix.
Oh.
And season 2 comes out tomorrow, guys. Actually, how's that for good timing?
The television, it can't leave her.
I know, right? Season 2 comes out tomorrow. So I'm excited for it. If you like real estate and drama, and like we're talking luxury real estate, it's Beverly Hills, right? So, so it's kind of cool to be affiliated with that. Great brand.
Well, I mean, Oakville can be kind of Beverly Hills kind of too. Oakville and Burlington. Let's not lose some focus here. I mean, and what's going on. And I don't know if that's for everybody, but nonetheless, though, and in talking to people that I know that have taken that real estate route, they say to me, Bubs, the great thing about it, and some of them actually were in television as well too.
Yeah.
Is the relationships that you build with people, and as you said, finding their dream home, and you just can't help but want to help people.
Of course, and you develop relationships with these people, and sometimes they're existing relationships, they're friends before, but if they weren't friends before, they usually then become friends. You start to care about them, and you want to help them find their dream home. Home is something that's important to all of us, and so it's really cool to be a part of that now, and and doing it in the community I love and grew up in. It's pretty surreal to kind of be back there and as an adult now raising my kids here, it's pretty amazing.
Okay, you just said the key word again, and you talked about it off the top there. 2 little munchkins. Candace, and I guess actually the real estate is probably perfect because you are kind of an independent contractor. You do your own thing, work your own hours, and but you get an opportunity to raise your 2 boys.
Oh yeah, and they're sweet boys. They're wild boys, but they're sweet kids, and they're into sports and they're very active. Like Brooks, my oldest, he is into golf, and which got his name from golf.
Brooks Koepka? Okay.
Hey, he was world #1 at the time when Brooks was born.
Okay.
But he's like super into golf. The youngest is now into soccer, Nash. And so, yeah, they keep me busy. They keep me on my toes. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be like that for years to come. Just getting started.
Well, you know, I remember when we first met, probably around 2010, and one of the reasons why we were so interested in you in Sportsline was, you know what? Wow. I mean, and not to say this isn't possible, but like your knowledge of sports was over the top, you know. But is that what got you in? Was it a love for you? Was it a passion for you when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, for me, so I grew up riding horses, but I was obsessed with hockey when I was younger. My dad's a big Leafs fan. He still is, bless his heart. Just do something for him. Come on, like win a cup or something. It'll get farther.
Win a second round.
Right?
Get to the second round.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, I was super obsessed with hockey. And then I was like, okay, how do I use that? And then I was interested in TV and I'm like, okay, I'll get into sports broadcasting. And at the time too, I mean, this would have been, I started in 2008, really, working. There was not a lot of female sports reporters or anchors. I mean, you could really, in this country, you could count on both hands, really, and you could probably name them all. Like, there were not a lot. No. And so I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And I was like, I can do it. And I did, my postgrad in journalism, and I interned at TSN, off the record, back in the day. And then, right out of school, started working for the Ticats and just kind of ran with it.
Yes, the Ticats, and I've had other people on this broadcast, Louis Butko being one of them just this week, who also was, a kind of content creator with the Tiger Cats, and that job has really grown. But that, I've heard from so many people that have taken that role and saying that really got them going in so many. You learned a lot, didn't you?
I learned so much. I mean, it was such an amazing experience working for a professional sports team day in, day out. And just, you learn so much about how professional sports teams work. And just to be involved in everything. And I mean, we did stories every day. So I was always at practice or training camp. We had 2-a-days. It was just so involved. And then I also was game host too, which was a huge thing. I mean, new coming out of school, and then you're standing there in front of all these people is like kind of crazy.
The current Natalie Sexton.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And it was such an incredible experience. I mean, to be on the sidelines watching the football game is like nothing else. And I learned so much from them. And then, spending all that time in Hamilton and then CH, I mean, it kind of hand in hand. I mean, you were always there and meeting everyone here. And so it just kind of seemed like, okay, like I think that's maybe one day if I can get over there, that would be really cool.
But where you built your resume was with the Fight Network, and again, reporting, hosting, and really diving into one particular sport.
Yeah, and it's interesting. When I started at the Fight Network, I didn't know a ton about fights and fighting, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to learn, because fight fans are legit and they will know if you are faking it, right? That's what, they're like, you have to study, you have to learn. And I was like, how am I going to do this? I don't know anything about it. And I worked so hard, and then I kind of ended up into the boxing world. And I became obsessed with it, and I loved it. And that's what I did. I was their boxing reporter for so long. And then I actually would do boxing on the side myself. Like I got into it. Yeah, I did. I mean, just training. I trained with, some of the guys that I would cover in their gym, just as a workout. I wasn't going to fight or anything.
Yeah, but you learn how difficult it is.
Oh, yeah. And it was like a gritty, professional boxing gym. It wasn't a fancy thing. It was just like we were here to work hard, and it was really cool. But just developed such an appreciation for that sport and a passion for it. And then of course MMA as well. But yeah, it was, I learned a lot there. And then that's kind of just what led me into CH and got in here. And I mean, I was doing that. I also did Rogers when Rogers had like a local TV station in Mississauga. Right. And I think that's kind of when when I was there, Sportsline was kind of in the works.
Right. It was for sure.
Yeah, and we just like stayed connected, and then it just kind of.
Well, and you're really telling or painting a picture of exactly of what young broadcasters have to do. First of all, you never say no, right?
Yeah, you don't.
Like you said, you knew very little about MMA and boxing, but you said yes. You got into it. You learned. You embroiled yourself. As you said, even doing some training. And I think that young broadcasters nowadays have to really understand that you've got to become part of it. And don't say no. Learn to be uncomfortable and make that comfortable. And get your mileage in there because, as you said, the Ticats and with the Fight Network, you were working and doing something every day.
I was always doing something, and I was constantly reaching out to people and seeing where I could help out and just go and learn. And I would take any opportunity I could because, I mean, there's so much to learn. But it's just all about the experience and the exposure and meeting people. Again, it's coming back to the relationships that now it's kind of full circle, right? It's very similar. It's all about those relationships and networking. And when I started, I mean, I knew no one. And I knew very early on that this business is a lot about relationships, to get your foot in the door and get the reps, right? And I knew no one. And so it was constantly me reaching out. I was just cold emailing and cold calling, like, can I come in and meet you? Introducing myself, sending them clips of myself, like anything I could do to get those meetings. And then I somehow got in with TSN. Like I was, pestered them just to do a school assignment there. And then I parlayed that into the internship. And then, it's turned into the Ticats thing, and I was like, this is a great opportunity. And I remember being in school and I was like, well, I want to do TV and it's not TV. And I had some people that when I was interning, they're like, you do not understand how big of an opportunity this is and what you will learn. And I obviously took it, and I'm so thankful I did. But it's all about relationship building, and it's not easy, and you have to put yourself out there, and you have to be willing to do the work, because if you don't want to, there's lots of people that want to do it.
One of the things too, I think that I could see on that Fight Network, and again, when we looked at your resume tape and talked to you, was you can't be, once you get to a certain level in this business, in the sports business, your fandom has to some way take a back seat, because you can't be all bright like, oh my God, I'm interviewing so-and-so. But on that Fight Network demo tape that we just rolled, here you are in boxes doing one-on-one with two of the biggest boxers still to this day, in the likes of a Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather Jr. Like, what was that like for you?
You know what, the Pacquiao one I remember especially because and it wasn't face-to-face. You're still talking to them. Yeah. And the Pacquiao one, because at the time, and I don't even know if he still does, but he was a big singer too, right? He was like, he wasn't great.
He did like to sing.
But he loved to sing. Like, I remember being on Jimmy Kimmel and singing and all that stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask him to sing, because why not? Because no one else is going to do it. And if he does it, that's great. That's great television. Like, why not? And so I just asked him, and I mean, you saw his reaction. He was kind of like, I could hear in my ear, like the people that he was with, I could hear them all laughing. Like, they thought it was funny, but he did it. Right. And now I have him singing to me, right? Forever. I will forever have that memory.
Yes.
So it was just kind of one of those things. It's like, you might as well ask. Like, why not? Like, put yourself out there and see. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And that's happened before. But if it does work out, it's great. It's great television.
It was great television, and was certainly, again, when we're looking at the resume tape and Sportsline, the 2.0, the CHCH version comes to fruition, and we're building that sort of brand. We haven't even gone on air yet, and we determined that the show also needed to have a report here and there, and something going on locally, and we put out the applications and whatever, and we got a lot of responses, guys, girls, experience of various levels. But there was something that stood out about you, and just even talking to you, that you were ready to go, or you were ready to go and ready to do whatever, and I thought that was an important part of you. And I guess guess again, that's all your building and experience that was going on with you. I mean, look at you. You this is, again, like you said, 2010, 2011, 2012, and you were willing to do a variety of things. Look at you laughing.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? And I think, you took this opportunity and ran with it.
Yeah, and I think for us too, I remember like one of the first Sportsline reports I did, like going to the Leafs practice and stuff, and everyone, they're all talking about last night's game or tonight's game or whatever, and we were different. We wanted to have fun with it and just
look at you.
No, I know that was great. The James Hinchcliffe was, I just remember that was one of my favorite stories because we got to do go-karting. It was pretty cool. And I was holding him off there. I held him off for I was like, it's James Hinchcliffe, and I had him. And then I obviously went too wide and he cut inside. Like,
he is a professional driver, right?
I know, but I was like, okay, it's so cool to see all this because I haven't seen any of this in so long. But yeah, the Hinchcliffe stuff, it was like, okay, I'm like holding him off. He's a pro driver, right? But yeah, just stuff like that. We were different, and that was kind of the point. And I remember going to that, like, it was training camp and everyone was, okay, all serious and this, and we weren't. That was the point of this report, was kind of just lighthearted. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was Ron Wilson was the coach at the time, and it was towards the end, and so like he was extra prickly. and so I was just like, we're going to see what they did for their summer. That was kind of the theme of our report. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a huge scrum. Mm-hmm. And I'm in there and I'm like at the bottom, right? Because sometimes there's so many people and you are on top of each other and you're like squatting down and you're holding the mic and whatever. And I was like, hey, like Ron, I think I was one of the first people who went, and I was like, hey Ron, like how was your summer? And everyone else was kind of like, what is this girl doing? Like, why are you asking?
Well, yeah, because they want to know, they want to ask about the power play,
of course.
Wow.
And it was like because they're like, well, that's not gonna fly with him, right? And he kind of was taken aback, and then he was like, oh, actually, and he talked about his grandkids and that kind of thing, and it kind of softened him up, and he was almost like relieved. It was like, oh, this is a nice, like, something different to talk about than the same old, and I think that's what we tried to do with the reports. And so yeah, and then eventually the people would see me around and whatever, and they'd, okay, it's Sportsline, like I get what's going on here, because I would sometimes ask random things, and they're like,
no, I mean, and that was the whole point of it, and that's what we wanted. That show was to be different. It wasn't to be a TSN Sports Center, or it was about Hebsher and I and Port Wando and yourself and other Scott Radley, all the people that came in and helped out about talking about sports at times, debating about sports, and then having your report part as something different, as you said, talking to people, getting to know a little story behind them. James Hinchcliffe, as you said, racing with him. We just showed, there's so many, we could just show so many tapes of you, but I'll tell you one, Candace, there is one report. I mean, I don't know. Again, journalistically, I don't know if it was your best. I can't even say that. But all I know, there's one that sticks in my mind. And it had a lot to do with Labor Day, the Tiger Cats, and the Argonauts, and what goes on in the pre-game festivities. And we got to roll this. This is so much fun.
Go, Cats, go!
Tailgating goes hand in hand with football games, and here in Hamilton, it could not be more true. The Labor Day Classic is the biggest game of the season, especially this year with both the Argonauts and the Tiger Cats in the playoff hunt. So, what makes for a great tailgate? There are some basic necessities one must have to ensure a successful pregame party, such as good friends and lots of good food. The more the merrier definitely applies to the complete tailgating experience. Even those fans cheering for the away team are welcome. Now, you definitely want to pace yourself so you don't end up like this guy who missed out on all the action. I even got in on some of it, participating in my very
like perfectly captured moments. Look at you, embroiled again. What we wanted, embroiled in the action. And this was a special report. I mean,
very, very appropriately dressed too. I'm in like a dress and heels in a field, playing games with people that are like 10 beers deep at that point.
But you were involved. That shot of the guy who clearly didn't even make the game, passed out on the bench. Like, what a beautiful shot of what exactly goes on in these things.
Oh gosh, it was great. That was so much fun to be able to do that kind of thing, and just, yeah, these were fun reports. You weren't seeing this on, the other stations. So, and especially like that is the Labor Day Classic is so big here in Hamilton. And so it's you get to really see what it's like. And so it was pretty cool. And people were, people loved it. People loved to get the camera out, and people all want to be on TV and share their thoughts and opinions and get involved somehow. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
That was great. That was a great report. I could watch that over and over. We took out some of the sound, but we just wanted to really hear from you and whatever. And just, I'll tell you, that was again capturing really one of the biggest days here in Hamilton.
Oh yeah,
really is that Labor Day. You will know that as you covered it a couple of times. But as we have it in this business, one thing hopefully gets to the next thing. And one day you came to me and said, "Bubs, I'm done." I'm moving on, right? Moving on up, right?
Yeah.
And a great opportunity at TSN.
Yeah, you know what? I had an opportunity to join the morning show at TSN Radio, Mike Richards in the morning, and I thought it was, I was here for 4 years, and it was just something different. And yeah, I wanted to give it a go, and I was getting up really early. I was up at 3:15 every morning for 2 years, 2.5 years. I did that. But no, it was a great experience, and it was I didn't know much about radio either, so I had to learn that. And yeah, we had a blast. I would do the Sports Center updates every half hour. And so, my day was done at like 10:30 in the morning, which was just, it's appealing, but then you're so tired. Anyone that's done shift work or like a morning show knows it's, you gotta, it takes a toll. But I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Well, Mike Richards is kind of a fun guy.
Oh,
right?
yeah. We had a blast. We had a blast. And it was a lot of joking around. It really didn't feel like a job, right? Which this did not. That's the cool thing about being able to and having the privilege to work in TV and radio and that kind of thing is like it doesn't feel like work. Like we're pretty lucky that,
no doubt, getting
to do it. So yeah, it was a really cool experience. And I did that for a while. And then I was just kind of, it does take a toll on your body working that early, and knew I wanted to have kids and that kind of thing. And just, I was like, you know what, maybe it's time that I move on. And I was in broadcasting for almost 9 years, I guess it was. And yeah, but it was a great memory there too, for sure. So
that's where we get to. We get to this kind of crossroads, and I think all of us, every one of us, at some point in our lives, we get to some type of day of where you've got to figure stuff out, and where am I going with my life, and what am I doing? And you're at an age right now too, at that point where those are the questions that were coming up, and you ended up out of the business, as they say.
Yeah.
But you found something else, right? And were you just kind of searching? What was it?
Yeah, I think I'd always kind of I'd always thought about doing real estate for a really long time. And when I left TSN, it was just funny because a lot of other people got into it. And I was like, maybe it's not the right time. It just seems like everyone's doing it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to try something like a desk job, right? And I'd never done a desk job. So I got in with the provincial government, and I worked for the Ministry of Seniors, and then I ended up working for the Ministry of Health as well. But I did, some HR and business services, and then I ended up doing communications. And there were definitely aspects that I did like of it, but it kind of made me realize this isn't really for me. I should do what I've been thinking about. I should do the real estate. So while I was working there, I started getting my real estate license. And so, commuting on the train, I'd be reading my book and then going to work, and then on my lunch break, reading my book and doing all the exams. And then, yeah, I got my license right before, like a month before I had my first son, and then kind of stayed home for 4 years and parked the license and stayed home. I was a stay-at-home mom, and then lived through COVID with, my oldest. He was only 4 months old when COVID happened.
Wow.
So it was learning how to be a new mom and having a kid and figuring that out. Right. And then also COVID and not knowing what's going on and not being able to leave the house with a new baby. It was quite a challenge. And then, got through that and had my other son. And then it was like, okay, timing is right now that I can start. And my oldest, he went to junior kindergarten in September. The youngest went to daycare. And I was like, okay, now I was
ready.
Time. Yeah.
Me time.
Yes. And I was ready for it. So this fall, and even now, it's still a lot of big changes, right? So, But like you said, it's this time in my life. And I feel like so many people go through that, where there's second careers, third careers, because kind of like my third career at this point. So it's we're constantly changing and learning, and you change what you want to do.
Great point.
So it's been a lot.
You alluded to this when getting back to the broadcast side of things and the broadcast side of, and you being at home, actually.
Yeah.
You being at home for that 4 years. And when you turn on the TV and you turn on CH, when you turn on TSN Sportsnet and all the sports that's going on, there's been so many changes, but the good thing is, you are one of the, in this area, one of the pioneers of a woman with a microphone and in the scrums and doing your thing. And I guess there's got to be a moment or a feeling of strength or empowerment or when you turn on TSN, because TSN now have more female anchors than male anchors by a large margin.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing to see. Because like I said, when I started, there were not that many. I mean, you could name them. It was probably under 10. Like, it was not a lot.
Nationwide,
exactly. And I mean, when I would go to Leafs practice or, Jays or Raptors, whatever, it was typically me and mostly men. There'd be occasionally another girl, and we'd talk and be like, oh, hey, like, because there just wasn't. And I mean, everyone was great. I mean, everyone was really welcoming and that kind of thing. But it was almost a novelty, it felt like at the time. Like, it was just so like, oh, well, now there's a female sports reporter right there. Oh,
did you ever, not to interrupt, but did you ever feel like, I don't know, kind of intimidated maybe?
For sure. I don't think that wasn't intentional by people, I think. But I mean, I remember going to my first time at like the Blue Jays batting practice. And I mean, everywhere you go, whether it's hockey or basketball or baseball, they have their own, like, this is how we do things for, like, if it's a morning skate or a shoot around or whatever, and you learn the cadence, and when you go, it's just, okay, I know what I'm doing. But I didn't know, and, you go down there, and it's like, okay, well, the locker room's open, and it's like, so can I just, like, they're like, yeah, you can go in, you can talk to guys, if you want to interview them, bring them out to the field, but, like, walking into a professional, at the time, my first Jays batting practice, they were playing the Yankees. And I think we went because I think it was like Russell Martin was catching for them still back in it. So we wanted to do, because he's Canadian. I think a lot of people want to talk to him. So that's why we went. And I remember walking into the Yankees clubhouse, and it's like, that is super intimidating. I was maybe 25, like I'm a baby, and it's all men. And there's Derek Jeter. That's how long ago this was. There's Derek Jeter sitting there, who's like one of the biggest sports figures ever. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, it's very intimidating. They all kind of look at you like, who's this girl in here, right? Because again, back then it wasn't like super common. But, and then you meet people, and like, I remember I went up to Jamie Campbell and I introduced myself, and I was like, hey, I'm new. I'm with Sportsline with Bubba. And like, how does this work? And he was just like, explained everything. He was so gracious and lovely. And was just like, oh, this is how it works. And I was like, okay. And then you develop rapport with people, and then it gets easier. But especially the initial, when you don't know what you're doing, and there's all these people, and especially like athletes of that caliber too, it's very intimidating. Me just, 25-year-old me walking into the clubhouse.
For sure.
There was definitely moments, and you just have to pretend like you're not scared and not nervous.
But you build a thick skin, though.
For sure you do. You have to. You have to, or you won't last long. And you have to be willing to put yourself out there. And like, I can be a shy person. Sometimes my first inclination is kind of like, a little shy. But in those situations, you cannot be. And you just have to push through it and pretend that you're not, and pretend that you're not nervous, and, and then it becomes easier the more you do it, kind of fake it till you make it. Right. But yeah, there were definitely moments. And I mean, now it's so different. It's like you said, TSN has more female anchors and reporters than men, and it's really cool to see.
I think, and dovetailing off that too, the Professional Women's Hockey Association, and we had Emma Malte here and Renata Fast sitting right here in this seat, and how proud they are of the product that they're putting out there right now. And in Toronto right now, they're on like an 11-game win streak as well too. But again, the changing face of sports right now, that, you know, we had seen professional women's hockey knock on the door a couple of times, fail. But this isn't failing. Like, the time is now. You look at the crowds at this, like, they're going to set a huge record. When Toronto go to Montreal, they're expecting 21,000 people there. And this is becoming on the regular now in this league.
Yeah, it's amazing to see. And it's time. Like you said, like, this is the time now. And I think everyone's like, yeah, this is long overdue. And people that have, and, you know, people, daughters, little girls, and like, they look up to these women, and for them now, they get to see a product in real life on the ice at that level, is pretty amazing. It's pretty inspiring, and, you know, it shouldn't be a novelty anymore. It's the norm now, right? Which is pretty amazing to see.
You know what's the best part about it for me, from a male, an old man male right now, is probably looking at it right now for your sons. Is that your sons will have a different perspective for female athletes than I ever did. For sure
they will, because to them it's normal. Like, we grew up watching this and that kind of thing. And like, women in sports media too, right? It's like, oh, it's normal. It's not like it's, you know, they're just trying to put a female on air so they can fill. It's like, no, this is normal, and they're good at what they do too. It's not just men that can do it. Girls watch sports too. Girls play sports too. It's just always been funny to me that it's like, oh, girls can't talk about sports, and you get that. Well, like, you didn't play, so you don't know. It's like, men that are reporters didn't play either. It's like, give me a break.
Right.
So it was. I just always thought that was, well, you can't know. You don't know. Like, you get looked at differently sometimes, especially back when I was doing it, just because, like, oh, you're a girl and like, you're a young girl, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, well, why can't I like sports? Why can't I watch sports too? So I was just always kind of perplexed by that. It's like, girls can't watch sports? Like, of course they do.
But Candace, you're one of those ones. Again, I don't want to, maybe you don't like the word, but it's just a pioneer, and you laid the track down for others, right?
Yeah.
You never. This is one thing I've learned about television, right? You never know. You always got to kind of watch what you say and watch how you act, because and I'm going to turn this in a positive light, because you never know who you're motivating, right?
Sure.
Because someone at some point turned on the television, watching Sportsline, maybe hanging out with their folks, or hanging out with their brother or whatever, and I'm just going to say this from a female perspective, and saw you and thought, maybe, you know what, I want to do that. Like, how cool, or, you know, hey, I love sports, right? Everything that propelled you into this business. Yeah. Now we're getting on the masses right now, because then you look at the PWHL, you look at, you know, the NBA. There are now women in positions in television calling games right now in the NFL and NBA, and this. I didn't know if that would ever happen. I knew women would progress, but now, like you said, it's normal. Yeah. And we're getting to a point right now where it's not like, well, she's a woman. You know, right?
Yeah.
She's a person. She's a fan. She knows as much as anyone else, right? And I think that's the most beautiful thing about this transformation that we're seeing in this sports business. So with that said, I will rely on your Fight Network knowledge right now, because what is going on here? I think sometime in July, we're going to see this Chris Paul, 27-year Jake Paul. I don't even know he was some internet guy who's fought a couple of fights against some pro guy, and he's going to fight the likes of a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, on Netflix. And as I've talked about this, I think this is junk, but I know on Saturday, July 20th, what I'll be doing. I'll be watching this. What?
It's crazy. I will 100% be watching too, because come on, I want to see it. But it's crazy. Mike Tyson is, I'm not going to say old. He's older.
He's 58. He looks good, though.
I'll give it to him. He looks good. But is he really? I mean, I definitely want to see what happens, because he looks good. Look at him. He's hitting hard. Like, I don't know. And the Jake Paul thing, I didn't really, again, I'm past like YouTube or whatever, but I'm a little old for it. I don't know much about Jake Paul, except till recently, because he's doing all these fights. And I was like, who is this guy? So I watched I think he had a documentary on Netflix too. So I watched it to be like, who's this guy, right? But I guess he's like a legit fighter. He's legit. I mean, he's not a bum, as they say, right?
No.
Like, he's been handling his business in the ring. So this is just so interesting to me because Mike Tyson's going to be 58. So I don't really understand. Like, I mean, it's money. I get it.
First ever live event on for sporting on Netflix. Like, this is huge.
Crazy. It's crazy. But I am like, I get it because people like me, I want to watch. People will. I think the numbers for this are going to be insane.
What's wrong with this?
I know.
58-year-old man.
He could win. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think he's going to, but he's Mike Tyson. Got to get the benefit of the doubt, right?
Well, we've seen Tonya Harding in the ring, right? Like, you remember that celebrity fighting stuff, and you're right. You're right. This is it's hopefully it's just a one-off and something that catches our attention and. I think we, you know what? I'm guilty of it. On July 1st, I show Joey Chestnut eating how many hot dogs. So if I can put that on television, I guess I can.
I can't watch that. Right? I can watch any kind of like fighting or whatever. Yeah. I can't watch that guy eat those hot dogs. It is so gross.
It really is gross. And the thing, I just showed him the other day eating pierogies, right? So,
oh God.
Cheers to the competitive food eating network. Unbelievable.
It's something.
Unbelievable has been you, Candace DeVay, and Candace Fogolin. It's a proud moment for you to be here for me, to translate the things that you have done in your career. I'm so happy and pleased to see that through the transition of what you've become and what you've decided to do, you're enjoying it, you're thriving in it. You've, as we both know, you got to enjoy it. It's not a job if you're enjoying what you're doing and making making a difference in people's lives. That's a big thing for me, and to see you doing well and thriving well and being a mother, and I got to meet your kids because I got to say, did they got blonde hair just like you?
Oh yeah, they're especially the youngest. It's like white blonde, blue eyes. They're cute little boys.
I got to meet them someday.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks for coming in, Candace.
Thank you for
Great
having
for the update.
me. It was so nice.
Thanks for coming in. Hey, folks, Candace, just one of the many success stories that we love to sit down and present to you. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event that deserves some attention, we want them on the Sportsline Podcast. Look us up on many of CHCH's social media platforms, and while you're at it, please comment. Hit that subscribe and thumbs up button because we do appreciate your feedback. It can only make us better. For the talented minds and hands that make this podcast possible, thank you so very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.